All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and discover why the incredibly simple act of flipping a light switch at night is actually erasing a biological reality that completely shaped our species. Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to flip a switch. Light will just flood the room, and you won't even think twice about it. But we so easily forget that for the vast majority of our existence on this planet, that switch simply didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went completely pitch dark. I mean, you literally couldn't even see your own hand in front of your face. Think about this for a second. For 99.9% of human history, we're talking over 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors spent roughly half of their entire lives in near total darkness. Didn't even have candles for most of that time. It was just the black sky, the stars, and maybe whatever small fire they could manage to keep alive. The way they experience the night changes everything we think we know about sleep, about storytelling, and about what it fundamentally means to be human. So, let's look at how this all started in Part 1, the Campfire Revolution, birthing human culture. To understand exactly what we lost, we really have to look at the one invention that completely restructured the human day and honestly kept us from being nocturnal prey. That invention, of course, was fire. Before it, our ancestors were just like every other primate. When the sun went down, you'd climb a tree, found a sheltered spot, and stayed perfectly still, because moving at night meant becoming food. But starting roughly 1 million years ago, with the earliest solid evidence found at Wonderword Cave in South Africa, humans used fire to change this equation overnight. A campfire creates this magical 30-foot protective boundary. Inside that circle, you're safe. Outside that circle, anthropologists note you are incredibly likely to become leopard or hyena food. Even today, modern hunter-gatherer groups know that wandering away from the fire at night significantly increases your chances of being killed by a predator. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. That circle of safety gave early humans something they had never ever possessed before: extra time. Before fire, the useful day just abruptly ended at sunset. Fire suddenly added 2 to 4 completely usable hours to every single night. And over thousands of generations, those extra hours completely changed the trajectory of our species. And we actually know exactly how this time was spent thanks to a fascinating 2014 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by anthropologist Polly Wisner. She studied the Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert, who live a lifestyle very close to our original ancestors. She discovered that during daytime hours, 80% of all conversation was dedicated entirely to practical work and logistics. Who is hunting where, which plants are ready, economic negotiations. Daytime talk was basically strictly business. But while at night, sitting around the fire, the entire character of human interaction shifted. A massive 81% of conversations transformed into storytelling, myths about the origins of the world, adventures, and jokes that made the whole camp laugh. Wisner argued that this firelit conversation is where human culture was truly born. The campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, and the original church. It's where we learned to imagine things that just didn't exist yet. Which brings us to Part 2, the 2 sleep secret, a forgotten biology. Because this ancient darkness didn't just change our culture, it governed a completely different rhythm of sleep that modern science only recently rediscovered. You see, you actually were not designed to sleep the way you sleep right now. Back in 2001, historian Roger E. Eckerch absolutely shocked the scientific community. After 16 years of digging through historical records, he revealed over 500 historical references proving our ancestors slept in 2 distinct chunks, rather than one continuous block. Spanning all the way from prayer books in the 1400s to passages in Homer's Odyssey, all of them mentioned a first sleep and a second sleep. People went to bed after sunset, slept for 4 hours, woke up for a bit, and then slept for another 4 hours. Historians had seen these words for centuries, but get this, they just assumed it was a mistranslation because they simply couldn't imagine people sleeping any differently than we do today. Right between these 2 4-hour sleeps was a period known as the watch. This was a completely normal 1 to 2 hour period of quiet wakefulness right in the middle of the night. And people didn't just lie there frustrated like we do now. They used this time to interpret fresh dreams, write, reflect in the dark, or even visit neighbors. A 16th century French physician even recommended that couples conceive children during this specific window. It was just a time when the mind was calm and the world was completely still. And modern science has proven this wasn't just some cultural quirk. It is literally our default hardware. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware proved this by taking a group of volunteers and completely removing artificial light from their lives for a month. They experienced 14 hours of darkness every single night. Within weeks, without any prompting whatsoever,
Every single person naturally reverted to this exact ancient sleep pattern. 4 hours of sleep, a period of quiet wakefulness, and 4 more hours of sleep. It was an ancient program waiting inside them, buried under centuries of artificial light.
This beautifully illustrates the biological magic of that midnight wakefulness. We measured their hormones and found their brains produced elevated levels of prolactin. Now, this is the exact same hormone released during deep meditation. The participants described feeling incredibly peaceful, reflective, and calm. It wasn't just a gap in their sleep, it was an entirely distinct state of human consciousness that most modern humans never ever get to experience anymore.
So, what happened to it? That's what we'll explore in Part 3, Conquering the Dark, the Death of the Night.
If biphasic sleep, along with this deeply meditative midnight state, is our true biological baseline, we have to ask how we lost it so completely. The answer, of course, is artificial light. It rapidly erased 300,000 years of nighttime darkness over just a few centuries of technological progression. In the 1600s, Paris installed street lamps under Louis XIV to reduce crime. The night slowly became somewhat navigable. Then came cheaper candles, then gas lamps in the 1800s, and finally, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. Within a single generation, the night as humans had known it for millennia was entirely gone. It's crazy to think about, but before this light revolution, the night was deeply respected and feared. In many medieval European cities, walking outside after dark without a lantern was actually illegal. Night belonged to sleep, to criminals, and to the supernatural. In fact, the word curfew comes from the medieval French couvre-feu, meaning cover fire. Bells would literally ring out, demanding the preservation of total darkness. People feared the night in a way that is almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around today. Which leads us to our final section, Part 4, the insomnia reframe, reclaiming our lost biology. We conquered that fear, right? We flooded those fearful nights with light, and we proudly called it progress. But in the modern era, we are paying a very steep biological price for banishing the dark. We didn't just change when we sleep. We eliminated an entire phase of human consciousness. Today, the average person is exposed to artificial light for 7 to 8 hours after sunset. And here is the major problem. Your body fundamentally does not know the difference between the sun and a modern screen. When blue light from your phone hits your retina at 11 p.m., it tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. It delays the release of melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep, and it completely fragments a circadian rhythm that took millions of years to evolve. Yet despite all our glowing screens and streetlights, our ancient programming is just sitting there below the surface, waiting to be reactivated. Studies show that going camping without any artificial light for just 1 week resets your melatonin cycle by nearly 2 full hours. Your body starts producing melatonin at sunset again, exactly like our ancestors did. That is literally all it takes for 300,000 years of programming to reassert itself. We traded a sky so dark you could effortlessly see the Milky Way for the mere convenience of a light switch. And most of us never even realized what we lost. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat mind-bending thought to take away from this explainer. Instead of a peaceful, reflective watch, modern society has given us insomnia, and we treat it like a medical disorder. But the next time you are lying awake in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. in the pitch dark, realize you might not be malfunctioning at all. What if it's simply 300,000 years of human history waking you up, remembering exactly what your body was built to do?